All right, how's it going? We're going to get through these patch notes faster than anyone else has. I've already looked through these yesterday, and I looked through them again today. Now, of course, I haven't played on this patch yet, and I'm going to do a follow-up video that will leave my thoughts later in the week after I've tested some of these changes, but this will just be kind of my idea of what to expect for the patch and my prediction for it, kind of. And just you can hear my thoughts on what's going on with the game and how it's changing. So the first change is the Azir update. I did not play a lot of Azir. I played so little Azir. I've seen a lot of other people play Azir, and I remember the Azir meta. I don't really think these changes are going to change Azir back to being an extremely oppressive mid laner. A lot of the changes are really minor, and in some areas they're pretty significant, like giving him a scaling shield, but it doesn't last very long. Well, the shield duration went down, but now that it has an AP ratio, it's actually pretty decent. But largely, I would say this isn't really going to affect his laning phase too much, and I don't know enough about playing Azir from the first hand to say definably that this is going to change nothing. But it looks like a lot of changes, but a lot of it is just so minor. I don't think anyone would notice unless you just made Azir already. So I'm going to keep my eye on Azir, but I have a feeling this is not going to change too much. The power of mid lane is really just not in the style of Azir at the moment. Definitely not for solo queue. But it might affect his late game a little bit, but I think his laning phase actually got a little bit weaker. But we'll find out later in the week if I've seen some Azirs played, and maybe I'll play an Azir game. Now, the real change that I want to get to is the Xin Zhao change. This is really interesting, but I'm kind of worried that this won't make him viable in high elo, especially as a jungler, simply because tank junglers are still so much better. But I think this will make him better than he was before, but I still think he's going to have the same like position of just being a low elo stomping type of champion, or a smurf stomping type of champion, being the smurf stomping people that aren't smurfs, and that type of situation. They normalized a lot of things, and one thing I can say definably is you're going to stack attack damage on Xin. You're probably not going to build Blood Razor ever again on him in the jungle. You're going to go Warrior, and that's because most of his burst is going to come from an AD ratio, and especially on the W, which is going to be the ability you max first, no doubt in my mind about that. This is going to make him probably easier to itemize as is, you know, if your main focus is just going to be attack damage, you can probably do some possible like Ghost Blade type builds with Warrior and stuff like that, and maybe Ravenous Hydra. You could maybe even still do Trinity Force, but I think largely attack damage is the most important stat for him. I'm not really sure how crit's going to function with him, like if it's possible for his passive to crit and do that bonus damage multiplied if you build crit on him. I don't think so, but that's something that I might test. But I think, yeah, largely if you're stacking attack damage anyways, you want to look in to see if crit is good on the champion. They moved a lot of his power around. Like his old W attack speed boost is now on his E ability. When you use it, you only get it for 5 seconds. It's going to be a 1-point wonder ability because maxing E first to get only 20% more attack speed from 40 to 60 is just not worth it. But the big thing that I think will help him a lot in like skirmishes mid game is just the fact that his ultimate is going to make it harder for AD carries to kill him. However, what this doesn't negate is crowd control, so tanks are still going to be a huge problem, and that's my main concern for Zen, is that he's still just not going to do that well against tank junglers. Aatrox, these changes I don't think will actually help Aatrox too much because Bramble Vest was not nerfed hard enough to stop people from building it, and it's still just as good as it is early game in terms of stopping healing champions. So while these might be like decent buffs to Aatrox, he still needs a lot more because he just doesn't fit that well into the meta. Now the Caitlyn buffs are really interesting because I still think it's going to be an Ardent Censor meta. We'll get to that later. So you could definitely pick Caitlyn into weak AD carries. Like say someone's like playing Ezreal bot lane. Caitlyn is totally going to be fine against Ezreal, especially if you have something like Janna or Lulu still. She can headshot turrets now. They kind of reverted the trap nerfs. She's going to be at least decent now. Like if you picked her in the last patch, she was really awful. But now that she's a little bit squishier, I don't think it's going to matter. And the oppressive matchups that she's in, it's like against Ezreal or something that just can't keep up with her pushing and her harassing, and something like Janna or Lulu is just going to offset that and help her by a significant amount. So the Janna changes are hilarious. I could spend a lot of time talking about why this is just really dumb to give Janna like actual harass abilities, because that's the last thing that you need for a champion that has a godlike late game, and still will have a godlike late game, is like a better early game. They made her tankier, they increased her attack range, they even made it so that you could do on-hit Janna if you really want. And later on, we're going to get to the Ardent Censor changes, and these changes will benefit Janna even more. She gets more passive movement speed without having to take a point in her W. The Q ability got buffed early game, is even better if you fully charge it. Zephyr, lower cooldown. These changes aren't actually a nerf because a lot of her movement speed got moved to her passive because it works on herself. But the big quote-unquote nerf that they were so worried about is they increased the cooldown of her E by 8 seconds, which is a nerf, but it ends up being the same cooldown late game. So she's essentially the same exact champion, except late game, mid game, and as soon as she hits level 9. And before that, she's probably even more offensive better, and she's tankier and harder to kill because they, for some reason, decided to give her more base health. So the windows that you can really punish Janna have actually gotten smaller, and in compensation for just having an 8-second longer cooldown shield. And you could totally play around that, and just abusing Janna's like new damage and attack range is definitely going to make up for that. I think we're going to see Janna actually do better this patch. I think Janna's win rate's actually going to go up. We'll see if I'm right, but I'm pretty sure win rate's actually going to go up. These changes to Malphite make him better into obviously physical damage dealing matchups. This works with his passive. When his W is up, it's going to triple his armor for brutal strikes. So 90% more armor. I don't know. This kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, obviously it's going to work with the passive, and that's going to be destroyed. But like, this just kind of seems like it's coming out of nowhere, and I don't think it was. Like, Malphite was in a weird spot where I would say he was just like, he's not an exciting pick. He's not overpowered. He's not underpowered. He was just kind of like maybe in his most balanced state in a very long time. Really good against AD comps. Really bad against a lot of top lane champions, period. I don't really think they needed to give him this, but yeah. He's going to be really good against full physical comps now. So you can pick him as a Punisher against like full AD compositions for sure now. I mean, he was good before, but he's even better now against that. And now the Orianna buffs, I think these are totally unnecessary. I just played Orianna last patch, and I lost the game, but I felt like I could still carry it really hard. We lost because we lost one team fight, and our team was really spread out, and we weren't grouped. And even though I had like a really good 3-man shockwave on their backline and almost insta-killed their AD carry, they still managed to kill me, and we lost the game. But I didn't think Orianna needed to be buffed. I thought she was like reasonably strong, if not like still maybe a little bit overtuned. So the fact that they're buffing her and making her easy to play is just kind of laughable. I don't understand why they would consider doing that when she's perfectly fine right now. But sure, let's just make Orianna really good again. If you watched my last video, you know that what's going to happen is Riot's going to keep buffing Ornn. They actually decided to go with the lowered mana cost this patch, so you can spam more abilities. This will help his laning phase out. Surprisingly enough, I think his laning phase was actually the strongest component of what he was. But, you know, once again, watch my video on Ornn if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts. This is the wrong direction to take Ornn. The kit is... You can't just keep buffing his numbers. He's eventually going to be overpowered if they go the approach of just, like, constantly tuning him up. They actually have to redefine this champion. The Vayne changes are just ridiculously laughable. They actually made Vayne a lot weaker, and she's more dependent on snowballing to be successful. These changes aren't going to make her laning phase better. Like, I don't think so. There are situations where she's like an okay pick-worthy champion bot lane. Sometimes, like against Ezreal, you could pick Vayne. But the changes to her really don't help her in the right ways. She's even more feast or famine now, I think. So when you're doing well on Vayne, it's like even better because of the new ultimate being extended upwards to twice the cooldown, twice the duration of her normal ultimate. But the fact that her Q can't crit anymore means that you can't just like farm up on Vayne and be strong late game. It's like you're only going to be good if you're snowballing and you're like constantly staying ahead, which is really hard for Vayne to do. So this only makes it even worse to have Vaynes on your team because unless they snowball, they're going to be garbage. I mean, that's already kind of the truth, but it's even worse now. I'm really excited about the Veigar changes. I'm really excited about the Veigar changes, but one of my main concerns about Veigar is they're buffing Edge of Night on the same patch. So this means that if you're playing against Talon, Zed, Rivens, Jarvans, these type champions that might build it, it's going to hurt you a lot. And those are situational items for them anyways, but it got better. So if you pick Veigar and you're against the Zed, he could first item Edge of Night and really fuck you up. He wouldn't even have to go Duskblade to solo kill you. He could rush Edge of Night and block your first spell. And Veigar needs to hit every single one of his spells in order to kill somebody. You got to hit the stun, Q, W, R, and they usually die. But if you have a spell shield to block either the stun, the Q, the W, or the R, then Veigar just falls apart and really sucks against assassins. So as much as I really like these changes, this is going to help him against control mages. Like, you're going to pick Veigar into matchups that you can farm in and aren't really oppressive and don't have great roams. And you might lose early lane, but these will be diminished a little bit because you're going to be able to farm better. You'll be able to stay in lane a little bit longer with health regen, more attack range. And this will definitely help out his mid and late game, having the new W, like, quite a lot. So this just makes Veigar better into the matchups that he already did decently well into, like the slow matchups, the ones where you just kind of trade farm back and forth, not the assassin matchups. So yeah, if you can pick him into some control mages, he's going to be even better now, but he's still going to suck against assassins. That's not really going to change. It might actually get worse with new Edge of Night. So the Ardent Censor changes are pretty laughable. It has, like, it's a little bit weaker early game. It's going to be about the same by the time you complete it. It's still going to be the first item you build. The big nerf is the fact that it's no longer going to restore health, but in compensation, they made it so now the support is going to get the buff as well. So the Jannas that have the new on-hit damage for some reason will now benefit from this attack speed and more on-hit damage. So literally, Lulus and Jannas are going to be doing a decent amount of damage early on. Like, you can't ignore their auto attacks. They're actually going to hurt you. They're going to hurt. So, and then it gets better late game for the AD carry and the support. It's now going to have just 10% more late game. It's already like a super awesome item late game. The fact that it doesn't give health, it sucks because especially on Hurricane AD carries, you just abuse this so hard. But this item's still broken. In some situations, they actually made it better. And why are you making this? Why is this item not just removed? It's such a problem to the game. This is laughable. It's actually going to be even more problematic this patch, I think. Bramble Vest, the price went up 100 gold, but it still does the same Grievous Wound effect. It's not reduced. I thought they were going to nerf this by... The correct way to nerf this would be to make the Grievous Wound effect reduced. So you complete Bramble Vest, it's only 20% Grievous Wound, and then completing Thornmail is 40%. So this item's still incredibly good. You're going to build it in the same exact situations, and it's going to hurt the same champion's top lane that it currently hurts. Random Thornmail buff. No reason to do that. Here's the Edge of Night buffs. This is definitely going to help matchups like against like Zed versus Fizz and Zed versus Veigar. Really, this item is situational before. It was still okay, but not like super great. You'd rather just rush your Duskblade and Ghostblade. But now with these buffs, it's just noticeably, it's going to be noticeably better. And I think you're going to see it more often in situations that it is necessary for Rivens and Zeds and Talons to prosper against crowd control and burst mages. Righteous Glory nerfs, these were necessary. Honestly, they could have taken it more with this. This item is incredibly good. It fixes all the problems that like Cho'Gath has and a lot of immobile tanks like Maokai. This item is honestly just too good. I'm surprised they didn't nerf it further. Zeke's is still it's probably still going to be a bad item with Ardent Censor being so good still. I don't really think there's any place for another support item. It's still going to be pretty much the same build order as before. It's going to be Ardent Censor, Redemption, and then situational, but usually like stuff like Locket and Mikhail's will still be necessary. There's just no space for Zeke's right now. They can buff it more and more, but unless it really takes the place of Ardent Censor and the meta shifts, this won't matter. A little bit of changes on spell shields. Ever since League was created, spell shields have been set up to block every ability that hits with an instant. Only one spell gets blocked. This is actually, thank God. I played against a Sivir the other day and hit her with 2 spells at once. or like me and my teammate hit her with different spells at the same time, and it just consumed both. Really annoying. I mean, obviously it worked with Edge of Night too, but we didn't see as much of that. This will at least make it so it's not so crazy playing against Edge of Night users this patch. And everything else kind of is really small and minor changes here and there for the bug fixes. Not really worth going through those. So anyways, I will do an update video once we've tested this patch. I appreciate it, guys. I'll see you for the next video. Thank you.